If you're having trouble keeping your mouth clean, pray for clean words. Psalm 19:14. This is a prayer. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Matthew 12:36. Circle it, star it, write it down. We will give an account for every careless word that we speak. That little joke that you let slip last week, that word, that you said to that girl on the playground when you were 5 years old. I was actually convicted. There was a girl, I don't know girls, you don't understand this, but you remember in 5th grade and sometimes in college, when a guy likes you, he picks on you. I'm not really sure why that's supposed to make you respond, but in 5th grade, guys pick on girls that they like, and I loved this girl because I thought she was, incredibly attractive for a 5th grader. She must have been disgusting, but anyway, so I picked on her, and I remember just calling her awful names, ugly, an acrimonious dolt, and anything, because I liked her, and I was so messed up. But guys, I think most of you did it too in 4th, and well, you guys probably did it in kindergarten. I matured late, and it was sad. And I'm Facebook friends with her now, and she sings in bars, and she just sings with a band. Her life's wrapped up, totally messed up. And I just hope that some of the words that I say did not drive her down that road. And I realized preparing this, and I forgot to do it, I need to go on Facebook and actually ask her forgiveness for saying such mean things to her when she was in 5th grade. Because I look at her now, and all of her Facebook statuses, my band's singing at this bar next week, and I just think, really? You're 28, you have so much more going on in life, or you could, but you very clearly don't have any relationship with the Lord, and I just pray that it wasn't the words that I said. We will give an account for every careless word that we say. We're basically out of time, but take your Bibles to James 4. And I want you to see this real briefly because I just think it's powerful. And it touches on what Moses said earlier. In my home group, we've been studying through the book of James, and we've actually been getting some teaching from a guy named Chip Ingram, which I highly recommend. If any of you lead Bible studies, you can use this stuff. James chapter 4, verse 11, it says, "Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. If you judge the law, you're not a doer of the law, but a judge. There's only one lawgiver and judge. He was able to save and destroy. Who are you to judge your neighbor?" Sorry, I guess it's the same verse I just printed there, I think. But the way Chip Ingram defines speaking against your brother is anything that makes someone think less of someone else. If I say any comment to you about someone else that makes you think less of that person, that's slander. And my wife and I have been really convicted of that. And I don't know exactly where sarcasm fits into that, but I think it's pretty close, Moses, as far as, anything just, well, this stupid pastor, he says blah, 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 blah. Anything that cuts that person down. And James says very clearly here, you don't do that. You don't speak evil against another person. Why? Because when you speak evil against a brother, you judge your brother. Okay? And by judging your brother, you judge the law. Here's the deal. If I speak evil against one of you, and I say, I'll just use Moses for example. Let's say God has given Moses a conviction. And so Moses' conviction is to not eat meat. Okay, we'll just use a biblical one. And so I say, Moses, there's the vegetarian for you. And I did anything like that kind of cuts him down. I'm speaking against him. But from Romans, I think it's Romans 14, it says, or Romans 13, 14, somewhere around there, it says, who are you to judge another man's servant? What if God has called Moses to be a vegetarian in order for him to reach other people? I'm now playing God and saying, well, we all know Moses is a moron for being a vegetarian, and now everybody's laughing. Now I'm God. I don't know what God may have called him in his life to do. We don't know what God's called. All of us look different, act different, have different convictions. And for me to go around and say, well, yeah, that person, man, I just can't believe what God did, blah, 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 blah. Totally cutting that they're God's servant. Now, if there's a sin issue that I need to address, I need to go to them face to face and address it. But I think this happens a lot in pastoral circles. You see different pastors cut down other pastors because they act one way or perform another way. And I need to be careful about that because I was joking to some of you guys last night about pastors. We don't know how God's not leading each person separately. And if you speak evil against a brother, and I think even sarcastically, oh, that church down the street, well, yeah, they do blah, blah, blah. You're basically making yourself God. And you're basically judging how God has called them. There's a church down the street, they practice, Grace Brethren, down the street from my church. They practice what's called threefold communion or something, where they believe in communion, baptism, and foot washing. and I'm not really sure, but apparently they do foot washing in all of their communion services. Maybe some of your Grace Brethren know that. Well, I've heard people say kind of, they're weird or that's bad. Well, maybe they believe differently from how I do, but I don't know that it's my job to say, well, that church is bad or that pastor is bad. I need instead to say that church answers to God, and if they're convicted they need to do foot washing, more power to them. If some of you speak in tongues, I personally don't speak in tongues, but I don't need to go around and tell tongues jokes about, did you hear that guy that spoke in tongues, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't believe in it, but that doesn't mean that God doesn't use that in your life. And it's hard because you begin to get into doctrinal areas and you begin to say, yeah, but that doctrine's wrong. Well, if that doctrine's wrong, go talk to them about it. If I disagree with you speaking in tongues, I should go talk to you about speaking in tongues. I shouldn't turn to Andrew and say, well, yeah, there's those babblers over there. That's not helping it. Maybe I am right, maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm right or wrong, I need to go to you and talk about it. And I think we need to be careful with our sarcasm, the same kind of thing. That's kind of a sarcastic comment. Sarcasm's powerful. I can use humor and sarcasm now to make you guys believe that my position is right and to really put down, and I could start doing a little speaking in tongues routine and flop around on the floor and say a bunch of funky sounds and make you all think that it's all a bunch of baloney. That didn't help. Because if one of you does speak in tongues to your brother for whom Christ died, and maybe there is a theological issue and we can talk about it in private. We've got to be careful about how we talk. Yeah?
What if we go to someone for counsel about another person, for advice or something like that? Would that, I guess, count as speaking evil?
The more I study it, the more I'm thinking that it does. Because Jesus says when you have a problem with somebody else, and I keep going back to this passage, but it's what God's convicting me of right now. You take the beam out of your own eye. And if I'm not getting along with you, I don't need to go to Andrew and say, man, what's your name?
Narwi.
Narwi? Say, man, Narwi, he said this stupid thing to me. What do you think I should do? Well, now I just spread that, and I go to Rebecca. Well, Andrew told me this, but I don't know that that's right. And Narwi said this. What should I do? And then I go to Jen. Well, Narwi said this thing to me. What do you think? Isn't that what we do? We go and we talk to all